My name is David Yeates. I'm with the Texas Foundation for Conservation as their policy director, and it's my privilege to introduce a longtime friend and work colleague, former Representative John Cyrier. Mr. Cyrier represented a district centered in Lockhart for 4 sessions, chaired the House CRT committee. I guess we should sit. And then also chaired the Sunset Commission. So pretty very involved in leadership in the Texas House for a number of years, and we're lucky to have him here today. We're in the legislative session right now. We're about halfway through, or a little over halfway through, and wanted to kind of touch on renewable energy and the policy side of that House. And we're lucky to have Chairman Cyrier because he was one of the first members to pursue legislation in this space. So, John, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. David, thank you. It's great to be up here with you, especially as we talk about 2019 here in just a minute. That year was a great year for Parks and Wildlife and great year for our state, actually, and appreciate all the work that you did in that session, and to get that ball rolling was critical. Pam, thank you for the invite today. It's a great conference. First time, obviously, I've been here, and it's amazing what you guys got going on today. David, you mentioned how I kind of got into this space about renewables, and really it's kind of the siting of renewables, or where the placement of solar and wind go in our state. In 2019, I was chair of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism Committee in the House. And that's the oversight committee for Texas Parks and Wildlife and for our historical commission. A lot going on that session. That's when we did our constitutional amendment for our state parks, the funding of our state parks through sporting goods sales tax. There was a lot of other big topics, but one of them that got brought to me actually after the session had started, was about a solar farm that was being proposed next to the Devil's River. And so members of the Devil's River Conservancy came to me and said, hey, this is going on near our state natural area, which we have 34,000 acres, I think. Is it somewhere around 34,000 acres of state natural area alongside the Devil's River? Just absolutely beautiful. And so when they brought this to my attention, it struck a chord, because I have paddled 10 days down the Pecos rivers and been on the Devil's River, and such a beautiful part of our state, if not a beautiful part of our country. And then the statement came out that, hey, there's some proposed solar farms that are being put right next to the state natural area. And so got my attention, and I thought, well, surely people would realize, especially green energy and the people that are involved with this project would realize this is not an appropriate place to be putting wind farm. And so I started digging into it, and then realized that the company that was involved with it was pretty adamant and had a lot of money already invested in it, which I could totally appreciate and understand. But then also started learning that there wasn't transmission lines in this area. We started digging in more and more about why that location was important to the renewable company. And it just didn't add up. It didn't add up to a point where in 2019, if you think back to that time period, I actually had renewable groups and bipartisan support on this piece of legislation. I mean, people agreed with me that there is certain places we should be not considering putting renewables, either solar or wind, that we should think about that before we did that. This was obviously also a big push, I should say, by the Devil's River Conservancy. They had been working on that for several years before. It had that great slogan, "Don't blow it." And so went through that session, and I told those folks and the people that brought it to me, and even working with our leadership at Texas Parks and Wildlife and Texas Wildlife Association, other groups that came to me and said, hey, we need to really look into this work, that this would be a time we probably wouldn't get anything passed. Obviously, there was a lot of opposition to it already, just even filing the bill. Understood that there was property rights issues that go both ways on these types of pieces of legislation, and so what I really stressed here, and I'm going to stress it again later in this discussion, is that it was an opportunity to have a discussion. It was that bill, and little did I know how much, as we speak today, how that bill started the discussion, which is quite frankly what I wanted to do. Didn't expect it to pass. I even told those that were with us, I said, hey, look, all I'm asking for is a hearing. That was in State Affairs. It was Dade Phelan, matter of fact, or eventually became the speaker. But it was Dade's committee. I brought it in, and I just asked the chairman. I said, hey, I just want to have a hearing because I want to bring people to the table. I want to have this discussion, and just because the discussions I'm having offline are, this isn't the right place to do it. We agree. That's even the renewables folks. We agree this isn't the right place. It doesn't look good for the rest of us. So that's what kind of kicked it off.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a lot of inside baseball, and we're kind of talking up here. Would you kind of summarize for everybody what your specific bill did? And we've had bills every session since, and there's one that's alive today that seeks to do something very specific. Can you just kind of touch on that?
Yeah, so the first bill in 2019, actually, it's in Val Verde County is where the Devil's River's at. So it specifically, we had looked at a couple different ways. And actually, I think it was, there was Eddie Morales might have had that bill also in 19, where I guess he came in 21. But there was also an idea of maybe we'd let the counties decide. Maybe we'd let the Val Verde County Commissioners Court. I was a former county commissioner too, by the way, so I had that experience underneath my belt, and I thought, well, that's a great way to do it. You could at least have that Commissioners Court make that decision, make that call. They didn't want that, and I don't blame the Commissioners Court. They didn't want that responsibility either. Some of them were the actual landowners. One of the commissioners was a landowner that was looking at selling his leasing out. Which is fine. That's part of the discussion. And so we decided to go ahead and use Texas Parks and Wildlife as the decider of where in Val Verde County where that would go, and the commission make that call. Yeah. So that was in 2019. 21, I was my last session in 2021. I decided to go ahead and file the bill again. Very similar in discussion. Thought about counties, thought about different jurisdictions to make that decision, but we stuck with Parks and Wildlife. And one thing that I did was actually expanded it a little bit, because what happened is in 2019 we started getting a lot of people feedback. I mean, people were calling me during the interim. I remember going into the interim was during COVID in 20. Going into 21, I had people calling me going, hey, you refiling that Devil's River bill? It started becoming really popular, and people were asking me about it and saying, hey, we're having these issues in East Texas too. Could we expand it into other parts of the state? Because we're also seeing prairie grasses and marshes and flyways and things like that being affected. So 21, we also brought it in. This time it actually had legs to it. I got bipartisan support in the Senate, because I got it through the House. I knew it wasn't going to be, I didn't say it wouldn't be a problem, but I got good support, got it through the House. And then when it went over to the Senate, there was some opposition. Again, they were trying to kill it on the Senate side. But I literally got Senator Eckhart. It was actually my senator in Bastrop. I worked with Senator Eckhart many years when she was Travis County Commissioner. Long and short is bipartisan support.
Yeah, she's a progressive Democrat out of Central Texas. So essentially all of the legislation that we've messed with over the last several sessions has focused on some type of siting, like where should this stuff go? Not we're against it altogether. In fact, we're for it, and it's a good thing for many people, specifically landowners that benefit from those lease agreements. But the siting conversation has been an uphill one, no doubt. And that sort of segues, and I forgot to mention at the top, we're going to try our best. I don't know if John's capable of it, but we're going to try to stop a little short and open it up for Q&A. So if y'all got questions, and certainly afterwards, feel free to grab either one of us. But let's talk about the political landscape and how complicated, because this one's not as easy as what meets the eye. You've got a pro-growth legislature. You've got what I would call lovingly environmentalists. You have what I would call conservationists, and there is a distinction, at least in my mind's eye. There are energy companies. The politics have gotten weird. It used to be that oil and gas guys were pretty dismissive of renewable energy. Well, oil and gas guys consider themselves to be energy companies now and are in the renewable game. And nobody carries a bigger stick at the Capitol than those guys, at least in the lobby. So, John, you want to touch on some of the kind of entanglements in the political landscape that this has to thread through?
Yeah, this hits on areas that I enjoy working on, but it also hits on an area that's did a lot of work with water as well when I was in the legislature. So it's very similar because it means so much, but it also, too, just like you said, it just crosses all these different lines. And some of these groups you'd never think would be working together, but they are. And then you can start putting the dots together. But where we're at today is that, obviously, since 2019, there's a lot of money in renewables. There's a lot of incentives in renewables. So there's big money behind this. A lot of it's not here in our state either. So it's not like we're having conversations directly with the companies that are looking at doing these projects. And that also goes with the locals, the constituents, the people that are in these towns that are having renewable projects come in, for instance, like solar farms and stuff, and they'll literally take out 2,500 acres, and they'll scrape the land right next door to a neighbor, and they had no idea it was coming. Property rights, I get it, both sides. So these discussions, and of course property rights is one of the top topics in the state of Texas in the legislature, and rightfully so.
And as a private land state, we're 95% privately owned. That's a complicating factor on just about everything that we do in the conservation space, and proudly so. We're glad that we're a private land state. That's a good thing. But like, for instance, last session there was a bill that said you can't cite a renewable energy installment within 10 miles of a state park and a few other designations. Okay, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Well, John here lives 10.5 miles away from a state park.
Actually, 2.5 miles from the Lockhart State Park.
Yeah, well, hypothetically.
That was not my bill.
Hypothetically. It was Representative Glenn Rogers, who's not in the legislature anymore. Anyway, so 10 miles. Well, if you're 10.5 miles, you get to put up a wind farm and get paid. And if you're 9 3/4 miles from the state park, you have the diminution of your land value because your view shed is now impaired, but you don't get to get paid for it. And that's picking winners and losers, and that's what makes some of this really difficult to navigate in terms of property rights and the political landscape of it all. Just as a hypothetical, and that was the problem that we dealt with last session.
Yeah, and then and again, there's a lot of nuances with this, but it's just there's a lot of money involved with it, as we all know. There's a lot of money involved, so that has a lot of outside influences that get brought into these conversations. And then, so yeah, last session I was out of the legislature. There was a bill that Senator Colcourse, and I know many of y'all are probably familiar with some of this legislation that's went through, that she had was also a siting bill, but it was for the whole state. She pushed it through. I think originally it was with Parks and Wildlife again, having the idea of Parks and Wildlife would do some type of report or see if it, from a ecology, biology state, if that made sense, and then PUC having a decision on it. It did not. It went through the Senate, got killed in the House, and didn't go anywhere on that. And I'll say, going back to the Devil's River, it was a discussion. By bringing a bill up like that, because there's a lot of different sides to it, what it did is it brought a lot of awareness. And going into 23, again, I became pretty popular. People calling me going, didn't you have that Devil's River bill? Wasn't there? We're having the same problems down on the coast. We're having the problems up in our prairie lands up in northeast Texas. We're having this especially because these renewable projects were coming more and more. This session, and again, it's become very popular, is the bill 819, Senate Bill 819, also by Senator Colcourse. I believe it's passed out of the Senate,
Correct.
so it's now back onto the House side, just like what happened last session. If you look through it, and I looked at it beginning of the session or whatever, if you look through it again, it's PUC having they have a shot clock too. They can't just drag these projects out, but they have a time period that they can work with Parks and Wildlife and decide if there's any problems with it. They can't stop it. It's not even saying that they even have a ruling that they can say, hey, no project here. You can't put an industrial renewable project at this section or whatever. It's just saying it's got to go for review. And if they don't, I think it's like 180 days. If they don't do something, then the project automatically keeps going through.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand the immense growth that this state is incurring right now. Now, 1,500 people a day are moving to the state of Texas. There are enormous energy demands with manufacturing that's on the horizon, much less just domestic use. And we're getting really strained. And this is also Winter Storm Uri plays a role in this. The electric grid reliability is a political lightning rod and a cornerstone of where Governor Abbott's coming from. So they want all of the above. And hey, me too. But let's not put it everywhere. It's very interesting. The last Senate hearing on this issue, you have the Texas Oil and Gas Association in opposition to a bill, along with our
Sierra Club.
Yeah, I wasn't going to name anybody, but environmental focused.
I don't even know.
And then you had like the conservation sort of landowner kind of centric community saying, "Hey, we need this." Like Ector County, Odessa, Texas, pave it. Let's do all solar panels and wind turbines as far as you can see. That's fine. It's a heavily industrialized area, and I grew up there. But Val Verde County, the Devil's River, adjacent to Enchanted Rock State Park. I mean, there needs to be some common sense brought to bear here, and it gets really balkanized, and the interest groups on either side will exaggerate research, exaggerate the outcomes, and with Chairman Cyrier's leadership, we're starting to have this conversation and try to find that nuanced balance. What are we missing?
Well, we could go on, as you said, we can go on for a long time.
Yeah, you
More
put
than
a
happy to
quarter in
talk
this
later,
guy
but-
and just
Yeah.
push play.
Yeah, some in the room know that. But we do have some time to answer questions, so I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Robert Fleming. We operate a corn wheat cow-calf operation in Bell and Falls and Freestone counties. We sit in the middle of 125,000 acres of solar panels. Your discussion with Devil's River kind of comes in touch with us on the Blackland Prairie.
Yeah.
Is getting taken up massively.
Yes.
We've gone to David Collingsworth at Brazos River Authority and said, hey, look, we need to have some sort of discussion about this, putting these solar facilities close to our water supply. We've also gone to our county commissioners. They evaded a solar facility right on the banks of the Lampasas River, right upstream from Stillhouse Hollow. It has 22 entities that it supplies water to across the county, and they still evaded it, so they're probably going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Farm Bureau, I'm active in Farm Bureau. We've talked about this for 1,000 hours.
Yes.
It goes always back to the private property rights. You can't tell anybody what to do with their place. I get it. But the non-participating and surrounding landowners have property rights too.
Yep.
And that's what we've got to start talking about in all.
This is the discussions that I think 99% of the opposition never hear, but I hear it all the time. I see it with my neighbors. My ranch in Caldwell County I got it when I was 26. I bought it when I was 26. Best decision I ever made, next to my wife, I should say. But it literally is. Property is very personal. That ranch is very personal to me. And what my neighbors do, my neighbor's been on their property since 1880s. That property is very important. Those property rights go both ways. The property rights go both ways. So.
Who else? Yes, sir.
I'm curious as to the damage the solar panels do to the dirt underneath. I had a friend who had a large tract of land near Waxahachie, and he's just signed it over for solar panels. And it was important prairie that's getting covered up.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, oh, it's not gonna do anything. Once they dismantle it in the contract, they have to remediate any of the damage that's done. And I've got no clue as to what might be destroyed, but certainly that can't be a positive thing.
It might go to your report deal.
Yeah, I'll take a swing at that, and I'm no ecologist, but I always say there's no free lunch when it comes to this stuff. And the solar farms that I've driven by are, pretty much impervious cover, caliche and panels. There's this discussion of agrovoltaics, and it's all greenwash kind of propaganda, in my opinion. But there are research efforts put together by all sides. So if you're trying to promote solar farms, you can find research that says, it's pretty light on the land, no problem. And if you want to argue that point, you can go find research that stands up for what you're trying to advocate for. So my guess is it's probably somewhere in the middle, but there's definitely no free lunch. That is for sure. Chad, did I see your hand up?
First off, John, David, thank you both for leadership over the years in this space and in conservation in general. I want to kind of back up, maybe just think of a project, Mitchell Foundation, and the Respect Big Bend project a number of years ago. And really thinking about kind of the tools that they kind of looked at this, right? In that particular project, it was looking at oil and gas and sightings and that aspect. But really, they took a full community approach of bringing everyone in the community to help and say, hey, where's a good site? What's this? And I think it's a good model that, do you see the future for that and expand it beyond the oil and gas into energy in general, and kind of your thoughts on that tool and I guess process too?
Yeah, no, Chad, that's where we're at. Again, hard legislation like this takes multiple sessions. And right now we're still at that stage of just nothing. They don't want, I'm going to say it from my side of it because I was in the middle of all this. Zero regulation. We don't want it. We don't, we shouldn't have it. We should be able to do whatever we want because we're doing it for the environment. And that's not the case. And quite frankly, a lot of people in this room and outside this room realize that we should be smart about where we're locating this stuff. It's coming on very fast, which is great. But we also ought to be smart about what we have. We've got new technologies coming in nuclear. There's going to be future other energy sources. And I'm just afraid that we're going to look back and go, why did we do that? Why did we put X, Y, and Z here?
Yeah.
Real quick, the flip side of thinking of this energy development is we got to be able to move that energy elsewhere, right? And so more high-power transmission lines, which is going to we're not being smart in those placements. We're going to have more eminent domain and things of that nature. And what about private property rights and thoughts around that?
No, you're absolutely right because with these projects come the transmission lines, and so they're crisscrossing too. So yeah, no, this is a tough space, just like our water issues that we deal with. But it needs to be discussed, like it or not, whatever side whoever's on. I'm just proud that it's out there, and it's just becoming more and more people have a place to voice their opinion and give their thoughts and discuss how it affects them.
As doing my job for Pam, we are out of time. I told you he would go long, but he's going to stick around, and I'll be around as well. So we'll grab any questions y'all have offline. Thank you very much. Pam, thanks for the invitation.